Hardcore modded Minecraft. As you know, we only have one life, and if we die, our world is deleted. Sorry I had to whisper there, I didn't want to wake that guy up. Our challenge, survive 100 days. We had 3 unique objectives. First, acquire full Mythril Armor. Second, defeat the Ferrous Wroughtnaut, one of the hardest bosses in this mod pack. And our last objective, defeat the Elder Frostmaw, considered by many to be even more deadly than the Ferrous Wroughtnaut. If you enjoy the video, a like and subscribe are much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and for the recent support on the channel. Will we be able to survive 100 days in one of the most deadly mod packs in Minecraft? Stay tuned to find out. Day 1. We start by immediately punching trees. Trees act a little differently in this mod pack as they fall over completely and give you all the wood in one go. While getting ourselves some stone tools, we found this adorable little creature. We got ourselves a little more wood, and while getting food, Painful got chased by an angry bull, so I went to help him out with that. We immediately found ourselves a village and borrowed some of the bookshelves, the beds, an anvil, and met the village lord, who had some heavy-duty guards surrounding him. We then ate one of the cakes at the bakery and found another bed to sleep in for the night. At the dawn of day 2, we found ourselves a beach with some wildlife around, and a nearby shipwreck which we went to investigate. This mod pack has some really beautiful coral around, which helps illuminate the ocean. Inside the cabin of the shipwreck, we found ourselves a chest with a balloon in it. When equipped, this increases your jump height and negates some fall damage. But we were rudely interrupted by an eel which started attacking Painful. It latched onto him and started biting him. I wanted to help him, but I also didn't want to hit Painful on accident. So I trusted him to handle it himself. We decided that this beach, being nearby to the village, would be a great place to start our base. We started by building a bridge over a pool, and we started on the outline of our base. After finishing the outline of the base, we put in some flooring, and while the sun was setting, we finished the second story of our base. On the morning of day 3, we started gathering some sand, which we used to finish the windows of our base. After finishing the second story of our base on day 4, we admired the view from our balcony. On day 5, we built farms in the roof of our base, and by the morning of day 6, our base was complete. We kept our furnaces and chests on the first floor, beds on the second floor, and of course, the farms on the roof. The village guards are acting a little strange. They tend to get in the way, but they protect our base from mobs. We decided it was time to go on a mining trip. We ended up finding ourselves a skeleton horse, which I thought was tameable, but it actually ended up being hostile. We mined some copper, some coal, and tried fighting a haunted tool, which hit me for 8.5 hearts, so I made a run for it back to the surface, and luckily, barely escaped with my life. On day 8, we returned back into the depths of the cave and found ourselves a zombie spawner. There was a villager behind the iron door, but we decided to deal with the zombie spawner first. Seemingly out of nowhere came a giant troll, which wielded a warhammer that was huge. We did not want to get hit by that. We noticed the village guards started attacking the troll, so with some quick thinking, I blocked off any escape the troll might have had and let the village guards deal with him. We had gotten the troll's hammer, which was capable of dealing 16 hearts per hit. We also found some good enchanted books, a name tag, and some horse armor and a saddle. We kept on mining for the remainder of day 8 and ran into some camouflage creepers, which didn't camouflage very well into the andesite. By day 9, we found our first silver and redstone and returned back to the surface to get ourselves geared so we'd be ready to go into the beneath. We also tended to our farm so we'd have a food supply while we were down there. On day 10, we had found our first diamond vein, as well as our first gold vein. Instead of there being bedrock, there was an arcane barrier. To reach this new dimension known as the Beneath, we needed to break through the arcane barrier, which required a diamond pickaxe. Once we had broken the arcane barrier, it let out a menacing howl. We knew to achieve our goals that we set out, there was no turning back. After days of digging through walls and mulling around, we had finally broken out and found ourselves a promising area. I yelled at James that there was a creeper behind him and he nearly blew up, but luckily he got out of the way in time. After defeating a skeleton and looking around, we found ourselves our first Mythril ore, one step closer to our major goal of crafting full Mythril armor. This advanced our world, making our journey even more difficult. So we crafted up some iron sabers, which would help us with killing mobs much faster. After spending the next 7 days down in the Beneath, we found even more Mythril ore, enough to make us both full sets, but we had to fight every step of the way. And finally, on the night of day 17, we had returned back home. The northern lights were shining bright in the night sky. On the morning of day 18, we immediately started by placing down our enchantment table and bookshelves surrounding it. It was time to start working on our Mythril Armor, meaning we needed 2 chopping blocks, and using those chopping blocks we put oak wood on them and then made that into bark. Next up, we put leather into a millstone, and using a hand crank, we turned the leather into scoured leather. We then made a cauldron, and using the scoured leather and bark, turned that into tanned leather. On day 21, we began working on creating a windmill. We worked on that all the way until day 22, and placed down the windmill, which would be used to power a turntable. Now that the windmill was complete and powering the turntable, we placed clay onto the turntable, which turns the clay into an unfired crucible. Next up, we ground coal into coal dust using the millstone again, and then, with the crucible we just made at the windmill, we put coal dust and iron into that and created crucible steel ingots. We finally had our steel anvil, meaning we could complete our first objective. We started by crafting a mithril bow, which deals way more damage than a normal bow, and then the full suit of mithril armor. And by day 26, we had finally crafted our mithril armor. On day 27, we started doing some enchanting on some diamond sabers and our mithril armor. The enchanting was a lot different since it was modded. We then noticed a zombie that had tunneled underneath our base and broke up into our floors, so we killed the zombie and fixed our base. We then spent the next 5 days exploring and found a Cyclops lair. I started by firing arrows at its eye, attempting to blind the Cyclops. The Cyclops charged right for us, but we realized he couldn't leave his cave, and Painful went on top of the cave to attempt to hit it on its head while I focused the legs. A 2-pronged attack, which was working flawlessly. And then, finally, the Cyclops had fallen. Now that we had defeated the Cyclops, we could loot the chests. Honestly, the chest didn't have anything too great, so we stole the gold instead. We spent the next 3 days returning back home and decided it was time to go to the Nether. After 2 days of searching in the Nether for a fortress, we had finally came upon one. Painful and I looked at each other and decided to go straight in. Painful noticed the chest on the other side of the wall, so he mined in and we looted the chest. In the process, I accidentally stared at a corrupted Enderman, which came straight for me. These Endermen were way more deadly and could blind you and teleport you around. While I was blind, Painful had killed the Enderman, and some pigmen as well. The chest had some interesting loot in it, including a totem of returning and some sort of pendant. After exploring the Nether fortress for a bit, we had finally found a blaze spawner, and went straight in to try and kill some blazes, but realized these were no ordinary blazes. Not only could they push you back and send you flying, but they also exploded after you killed them. We realized we were taking way too much damage, so we made a blockade so no other mobs could get to us, dug into the wall, and regened until we could come back out again. We went back in to try and kill the blazes, killed one, but the blazes were dealing way too much damage, and we realized we were in over our heads and needed better gear to tackle the Nether. So we went back into our hidey hole, waited it out, regenerated our health, dug away from the blaze spawner, and then we ran for our lives, not even looking back, just trying to escape the fortress so we could make it back to our portal in one piece. Dodging and weaving, blaze shots were whizzing past our heads, and we were running straight past wither skeletons. Luckily, we had made it successfully back to our portal. After a long day of traveling back to our portal through the Nether, we went straight to sleep and woke up for day 39. We then worked on a barn for the next 4 days, and we planned on putting a lot of different animals inside. It was a long process, but we had finally finished the barn on day 43. I built stables inside and put hay bales and cauldrons so that the animals would have plenty of food and water. On day 44, we began working on the blacksmith, but we were interrupted by a massive brain slime, which basically just hops onto your head and tries to eat you. That one big slime broke off into a bunch of little slimes, so we had to get rid of those too. We weren't done yet. A zombie known as a Frostbound broke straight into our base and griefed all of our windows, and we had to patch all the holes after we killed everything. After a couple of days went by and we patched all the holes, we also finished the blacksmith. So we decided it was time to go out and look for some hippogriffs. Unfortunately, to tame a hippogriff, you need rabbit feet, so we had to kill a few of these cute little animals. And by a few, I mean a lot. While searching for hippogriffs, I also stumbled upon a hedgehog, which actually is really adorable. After a couple more days of searching, we finally found our first hippogriff. Painful decided to tame this one, so we threw the rabbit feet around it, and eventually, the hippogriff was tamed. At first, Painful didn't know the controls to fly it, so he accidentally got off of the hippogriff when he was really high up, but luckily, there was water beneath him, so he didn't die. That was a close one. After another day of searching, Painful had ran into a skydrake and was fighting it while on his hippogriff. I provided ground support by firing my bow and arrow. After a few minutes, Painful landed a killing blow and it plummeted down, and we had defeated the skydrake. It dropped some sort of talon, which I picked up and looted, but after checking what it was used for, it actually ended up not being too good. After 2 more days of searching, we finally found a hippogriff for me. So, I threw my rabbit feet around it, and it got tamed fairly quickly. So I threw my saddle on it, and we headed back to base together, both on hippogriffs. These mounts are really awesome. They fly extremely fast and are actually super fast on land as well. Days 57 to 61, we spent getting animals, leading them back to base, and putting them in our barn. While leading a pig and a cow back to the barn, I realized Painful had actually taken the village lord and led him into our barn. The only exotic animal I put in here was a pixie. Afterwards, we decided it was a good idea to go out and find some endermen. So, on a blood moon, we ended up killing a lot of endermen because a blood moon increases the spawn rate of mobs by a ton. And after 4 days, we had all the ender pearls we needed. On day 67, we returned, did some enchanting. Days 68 to 70, we spent brewing a ton of potions, so we were ready for the bosses that we were going to take on. We focused mainly on strength, speeds, and instant health potions. It was then time to set out to search for the Ferrous Wroughtnaut, which took over 5 days to find. And then, on day 77, while going through the cave, we had finally found it. The Ferrous Wrougnaut. We immediately popped our strength and speed potions and tried to hit it, but realized it was invincible. We did not want to get hit by any of those attacks, as any of them had the potential to one-shot us. He then slammed and knocked us away. We needed to be extremely careful. He then took a huge overhead swing, and I knew this was my chance, and we landed our first blow. A large amount of village guards began to form around and help us, but he was invincible to their attacks. He made another overhead swing, and I saw my chance again and landed our second blow. He then took a massive swing, one-shotting every single guard in front of him. Painful dodged another overhead swing and tried to hit his back, but barely missed, and then narrowly dodged another swing. We went in again, and Painful and I both barely dodged the last swing, and Painful landed the last blow, concluding the fight on the Ferrous Wroughtnaut. We then received our reward, which was the helmet of the Ferrous Wrougnaut and his battle axe, which had some special abilities, including a large swing and an overhand swing, which when hitting the ground, it would knock up the enemies in front of you. So, we returned back to base, and I enchanted my battle axe, and we set out on an expedition to find a pirate ship. After 5 long days of searching on the ocean, we finally found one. But at this point, we knew we would be able to crush it. Well, that was easy. We ended up finding a pirate hat, stole all the loot, and even took the pirate flags. We then filled up the bottom of the ship with the TNT we found, and we used a fireball dispenser to blow it up. After spending 4 days of returning back to base, we decided it was time to look for the Elder Frostmaw, our final objective for this 100 days challenge. After 6 long days of searching, on day 96, we had finally found the Elder Frostmaw. We knew what we had to do next. And just like that, after trying to sneak up on him, the Elder Frostmaw had awakened from his slumber, eating his ice crystal and letting out a gigantic roar. I first tried utilizing my mithril bow, but the arrows bounced straight off of him. So I went straight in, trying to hit him with my battle axe, and he used his freezing breath to freeze Painful. I landed some more hits as the Frostmaw was focused on Painful, and Painful was spamming potions, just trying to keep his health up. The Frostmaw took a gigantic swing at me, knocking me away from him, and then froze me with his icy breath. Luckily, that didn't do too much damage, and I broke out of the ice. So, I tried to create some distance, and the Frostmaw launched a giant ice ball at me, freezing me again and dealing a good amount of damage. We weren't going to be intimidated and went straight in to try and kill him. We dealt some good damage, but then he swiped me away and froze me, so I threw down some instant health pots to keep my health up so I wouldn't die. We got out of the way of a huge slam, then went in to finish him off, but not before he froze me one more time. And as I was frozen, Painful went in and dealt the final blow, defeating the Frostmaw. Our final objective was complete. We collected our reward, which ended up being an ice crystal that had the ability of freezing enemies, just like the Frostmaw. And returning back to base on day 100, we felt an extreme sense of accomplishment. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Also leave a comment if you'd like to see us go to 200 days.